the Granger for President podcast. Always political, never politically correct. And if he ever does run for president, God help us all.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Granger for President. No, I'm not running for president, unless you all ask very nicely. So until then, though, I'm just going to be interviewing some pretty cool people about kind of the more major political topics of our time right now. I have with me Eric Faddis. Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself, the name of your law firm, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm an attorney by trade, so I do. I was a former felony prosecutor for quite some time, and then kind of saw the light, went on the good side, and did some criminal defense work, and then met my lovely wife, Lauren Varner, and we started Varner Faddis Elite Legal in 2018. So we do primarily like personal injury work, wrongful death. I maintain kind of a select criminal defense docket that mainly involves death cases, and then I do some legal commentary. And so, just talking about the laws and what's happening.
That's kind of how I found you, right?
Yeah.
Was we were referred on social media, but I saw some of your news stuff. So, I guess who do you usually talk to? TV-wise, I mean, because you're pretty regular.
Totally, yeah. I try to knock one of those out. Usually one per day or so.
You're doing one per day?
Yeah, I'm on about one per day. So I've done
I don't have that kind of energy, man.
I've done 350 plus media appearances, whatever, and so do a lot of court TV, do a lot of Newsmax, do a lot of Fox, do a lot of other local affiliates, stuff like that. Law and Crime is a big one, and so once a day or so, I'm asked to just opine on the legal matters of the day, man. And so they're foolish enough to have me on, and so are you. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, when I feel I got juked on this one, so we'll see.
We'll see how it goes.
So listen, here's the thing. So today's topic. I really wanted to talk to someone who has the political side that they understand and the legal side, which is obviously you. Really about what's going on just up from the legal perspective in all the new policies of the new administration, right? So as people know who watch this podcast, I'm really in the middle, right? I can kind of see things from both sides. But what I really want to know is, here's the thing. I mean, Trump and Elon, they're flooding the zone, right? They're getting edgy. It's full court press. I mean, they have no chill whatsoever. And here's the thing. Not that I agree with a lot of what they're doing, well, a lot of how they're doing, right? But I do have to respect that they understand that the faster you do it, the harder it's going to be for people to challenge it. So let's talk about that for a second. Walk me through, from your perspective, how is DOGE kind of skirting our legal process and still getting what they want to get done? And then what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, a big question is, what the hell is DOGE? Is it a federal agency? Is it an advisory committee? Is it
They seem to bounce across that line depending on the legal advice they get for the particular interview they're doing.
I think they are intentionally ambiguous about it, in parts because it leaves them open to take multiple legal positions depending on what they're facing in the courts. Yeah. I think you're totally right that it's this strategic kind of rapid fire blitzkrieg sort of approach, throwing around their muscle, and they have it. They have the political backing. They have the judges whom Trump has already installed on the federal courts. So they are really doing, like you said, a full court press. All of these executive orders coming down. The Democrats are struggling to keep up. They're trying here and there to challenge them.
Anybody would struggle to keep up at this pace. I mean, this totally. You know what's interesting? I was talking to someone about how are they able to go so fast, and I realized they had 4 years to prep. If you think about it, even a president in their current term doesn't have that kind of downtime to do all of that angling and planning.
Totally.
Because they're in it. They're still governing.
Yeah, right.
Right? Who was the last president who had a split term? Who was that?
Oh, wow.
Gosh.
It's been quite some time.
My political
I know Teddy Roosevelt had a split term.
That is
that's way
true.
back there.
Was it Hayes?
Maybe. It's been a minute, man. I'm not sure.
Somebody comment and let me know what the hell it is, right? Because I'm not going to look it up now. But, that's my point. It's they had every intention and believed that he would get a term again.
Yeah.
So they took 4 years and just workshopped stuff and had this insane, massive plan ready to go. And that I've got to have to respect a little bit, just because, I mean, the amount of preparation that went into it. Here's the thing. The amount of preparation that went into it implies that they knew they were getting in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a really rare situation to be in.
Yeah, I think they really sort of foresaw what the legal picture and the political picture would look like. And then, like you said, I think they had all of this sort of waiting, that they were ready to just like impose on the world, and they have.
And they did.
And you know, they want a drastic change. They want an about face from the prior administration.
Yep.
This is their way of doing it. Are they, ruffling some feathers? Yes. Is that by design? Of course. Is it causing confusion and chaos? Yes. Does that play to their advantage? I think at times it does.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to be fair, they were elected with that plan. They didn't hide the plan. They didn't say, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to figure things out. They said, we're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to do it this fast, and we don't care. And everyone's like, absolutely. And I mean, listen, I have a problem when people talk about how, that the things, that they're doing aren't from what they're being elected from. I'm like, yes, it is. It's not a coup.
Yeah.
It was a democratic process. Like, they said, here's all the things we want to do, here's how bad we want to shake things up, and here's how fast we want to do it. And then the majority of the country voted yes.
Totally. And they're, they a lot of candidates go in with this rhetoric and these pie in the sky ideas, and people are saying, oh, can they really effectuate that once they get in? I think the Trump administration, for better or worse, is making a sincere effort to do that.
Yeah.
And to really change the political and legal landscape of America. Now, there are certainly some questions that are raised from that. There are some challenges to that. But talk about a transformation. That's what they promised. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I really want to kind of dive in now is to understand some specific things that DOGE is working on. Like, so for example, the USAID, right? Which, it's weird everybody calls it USAID. Isn't it just USAID? Like, we shorten everything. Like, it says aid. Like, we can just call it USAID, right? Anyway.
Seems cleaner.
I digress. It is cleaner, right? So you have them basically dismantling that entire division, that agency. And, that is an agency that helped with doing foreign aid, which, listen, I get where the anger comes from. Because when you don't have enough at home, when you feel like you're not being taken care of here, you're like, how the hell do we have extra for anyone else?
Sure.
I understand.
Understandable.
That. I don't even necessarily disagree with it.
I feel you.
I don't have a problem necessarily with some of the things that are being done as much as how they're being done. If DOGE wanted to come in and say, listen, we're going to slash 20% of the workforce, hell or high water, and then they did an audit across every agency. And again, they send the emails that say, what did you do last week? Fine, I don't care.
Yeah.
Send the emails. Send all the things. Get all the reports. I don't even care how you necessarily judge their performance. But you might want to know what the hell you're doing before you do it. You can't have a 19-year-old kid, which they literally had, sitting in the system, not even understanding how these data on these spreadsheets work, right? And then going, oh, well, that's fraud. It's like, it's not fraud. You just don't know what the fuck you're looking at. Like, you literally have no idea what you're talking about because you're a kid. You can't even drink. What the hell are you doing in the federal system right now on this money? And like, so it's the methodology I have the issue with.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with 20% being cut if that's where our bloat is. Everyone agrees that our federal government is bloated. Both sides, 100% agree. But when you just go in and start demolishing things, you can't. That would be like a doctor saying, okay, we're gonna go and take you into surgery. You're like, why? Well, we're still waiting on the X-rays, but I got a gut feeling here that there's something in there I need to take out. Yeah, he was just going with his gut, there's like, oh, there's fraud. Okay, where's your evidence? Well, we're looking for it. Okay, so then why are you dissecting? Like, why are you completely demolishing agencies? And it's not just USAID, right? Like, there's plenty of agencies that they're just taking a hammer to, and they literally haven't even audited it yet. If they want to audit and then go, it's completely gone now, we don't see any reason for it. Okay, I may not agree with it, but that's the job you were given.
I feel you. No, totally. I mean, I'm sure you saw that sort of political theater demonstration with Elon Musk, and he's got the hacks on, whatever.
God, he's the.
And you know, but and I
weird,
totally
man.
agree that there needs to be a measured approach because there are national security interests at play.
Yeah.
There's a reason that you think all that aid is just like because we're this altruistic nation through the government
it's
hearts.
soft power.
There are strategic measures that we have taken in different locales to gain allegiance, to ask for favors, that kind of thing. Let's be honest. I mean, that's what the nature of this sort of trade is. So that's a concern. On the other hand, you know, the budget, or the deficit rather, is in the trillions, like 13 trillion, something ridiculous like that. So I think one thing Democrats do have to at least be mindful of is the consensus of everyday Americans that, like, hey, if there is waste, there is fraud, and we need to approach it. We need to do it in a vigilant and lawful way. But I think that having just complete opposition to any measures to cut it is also a misfire.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. I don't see Democrats yelling about the cuts. I see them yelling about the inhumane way, and also, and that's maybe the feels, but let's talk about the facts. Also, the ridiculous things that are happening. So I remember they sent an email and they sent everyone home and cut a whole agency. And then, like 3 days later, they were like, hey, you do realize you just sent home all the people who literally deal with all the nukes, right? And they go, oh shit, we did? Yeah, well, hey,
Probably
dum-dum,
essential workers,
this is what I'm talking about. This is the stupid shit I'm talking about. Had you audited first, you would have got a whole list of what everyone does and what their names are, and then you could have said, oh, the nukes people, let's leave them alone and let's send everyone else home. You see how, like, I don't got a problem with that. I'm sure those individuals might have a problem when they lost their jobs. I get that. What I'm saying is, if you're going to take a hacksaw, even people with hacksaws, they measure first. For fuck's sake, when someone takes a chainsaw or a hacksaw to literally anything, they measure it out. They know exactly where they're going to cut. They don't just start running around the forest and just going yum yum. I mean, that's clear cutting. It's insane.
And well, Jason, they had to actually hire back.
Yeah, they hired back.
And like how? What an embarrassment! That's a showing of incompetence. Like the fact that they're going about it in such a hasty fashion. Yeah. You want this massive change? Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But do it in a way that doesn't bring shame and questions about the administration. They sent a fucking email.
They had the first name and last letter of new CIA recruits.
Yeah.
Now here's the problem. After that,
those should be encrypted.
So here's what happened there. One, let's not forget, people are like, oh, it's not even their last name, and don't they use fake names? Okay, great, cool. Here's the part you don't understand about the conglomeration of data, right? When you collate data, China and Russia, they have all these different pieces, and those are just 2 more columns now.
Of course.
It just adds on to the spreadsheet, and it creates a more finer picture. And every now and then, one might hit. Even if just one CIA agent overseas was discovered and executed because of that email, I mean, imagine that. That's absurd.
Oh, yes. And what about the massive destabilization of these critical intelligence agencies like the CIA? Yeah. And then on top of that, I read a report recently about a concern where, what about disgruntled employees? Like, things happen. If they slash hundreds or thousands of people, those people are going to be pissed, man. What are they going to say?
Here's the thing. You got some field agent in the CIA on the job for 10, 15 years. Doesn't make shit, but loves the work. Maybe even voted for Trump. Hell, people forget that most law enforcement and military and intelligence, they're 3-1 Republican versus Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
So you're slashing your own people for one, right? Yes. And then you tell this person, hey, and the way they go about it too. He just says, bye, here's an email. What did you do last week? Oh, I don't know. I defended the nation against Russia and China. What did you fucking do last week, Elon? Right? Like, Jesus Christ. And then you get that person in a position where maybe, remember, the economy wasn't great for them in particular, maybe. Maybe they got a spouse with huge medical bills, but they were fine because they had their job, because they had their coverage. Now, not only do they get cut, but they have no money, they have no insurance, and they were treated like complete trash, like they were disposable. Now, Russia, maybe they do crack some code with a little bit more of that information. They get approached.
Of course,
we make movies about this shit. Yeah, this is literally how it happens, and we're just inviting it, and that's what's crazy.
And we're inviting even more than that.
Yeah, well. Okay, let's talk about that.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, when we talk about Trump's avowed potential plan for Gaza and displacing entire ethnic groups of people, And
it's on brand, though.
I hate to say it.
I mean, I watched it and I was like, yeah, that sounds about right for him. Like,
I hate to say it, but if you are asking for a terrorist attack, that's how you do it. And I'm not, God willing, that never happens. I don't want that to happen. But
you can't put Americans there.
You want to talk about all of these displaced people who are suffering from starvation, who are dealing with daily bombings, that kind of thing. You think they're going to be super jazzed about us? What about 10 years from now, once they have more resources, influence, and power? Like, those things become a problem.
Well, that's usually how it happens, right? I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I will play a little bit devil's advocate for, let's say, the USA aid thing, right? Here's where I think Trump's rationalization comes. Because on the surface, you look at it and you say, well, that's a stupid move. We were trading that aid for political favors that we needed, for our national security,
works, bro.
For economy too, because not everything is cut and dry. I understand that, and so people say, well, he's an idiot for getting rid of it because now we're going to lose all that soft power. I will say this though, I don't think we will, and I don't think that's why he did it. I think what he did is, I think Trump looked at the situation and said, why are we giving all this money and playing nice and trading when we can just demand it and keep the money? Right? It's kind of like, when you ever see those movies where like they got money and he's like, hey, I'll pay you to get this person back, like, some sex slave trade movie or whatever, right? And he's like, hey, here's $2,000, give me that girl so I can rescue her. And then they go, well, we could trade, or we could just take your money and kill you right here and keep her.
Right, I get you.
Like, they've got the ability to do that. And I think Trump realized that we're in that power position where I think he just looks at it, he's like, well, yeah, I could keep playing nice, but why should I?
And fair enough, but perhaps such a power play is appropriate in a business context, certainly. But in a political context, there are other considerations that are not always monetary based. They're not always leverage based. There are things that in terms of protecting our national security interests, our reputation within the world, there are considerations that go into that don't go into really a cold, calculated business power grab. And so I get some of that is going to government. But not to have government saturated and have that be the only mindset in making governmental decisions. I think gives rise to some problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I do struggle with this a little, because I do recognize that there is a massive political shift happening worldwide, not just here.
Yeah, you look at Germany.
You don't want to be the one without a chair when the music stops either.
I feel you.
And we are in the power position. I'm not going to defend it as much as understand it, because here's the thing: this used to be the law of not equality, but mutually assured destruction in certain ways, where we kind of just, hey, like, we won't, we'll play nice because you'll play nice, so that we don't all have conflict and it costs everyone, right? If you think about it, it's like an old gangster movie, right? These families from New York and Boston and Florida and whatnot, the old gangs, yeah, they didn't like each other, but they understood that war was bad for business, right? So they'd rather hash this out. That being said, if one of the families were to take a massive hit out of nowhere, and the bigger family that's just sitting there, they don't have to play nice. They can just say, you know what, this is not a bad time to just go in there and wipe them out and take what we want. And I guess the reason why I say that is because we're switching from that law of good business to the law of the jungle.
Yeah,
and that is a digression.
That sounds like a backward step.
It is. Well, but I don't know if it's really backwards. I think it's full circle.
Okay.
Right? Like, I look at our political system right now. When I grew up, I was born in the 80s. Democrats were like if two neighbors were fighting, one was Republican, one was Democrat. Republican ain't fucking with the Democrat. That Democrat was slinging hammers. That Democrat was in construction, was in doing on the fire line. Those were your working class people.
Yeah, right.
That's the Kennedy kind of Democrats.
Totally.
Right? Those were the guys you didn't fuck with. Those were your everyday guys. And then the Republicans were the elites.
Yes,
they were the ones that had the high education, and they were the ones that were, again, still conservative. But now it's completely flopped.
Which is now so bizarre to me.
But here's the thing: like, it hasn't. Republicans are now at least branded and have the voting base of the everyday people, but they're still conservative. And here's the part that kills me: you literally have the party that wants to slash welfare-style programs and social programs. And the people that benefit the most from those are quite literally their voting base.
Yes. Yeah, I feel you. It's
red states are subsidized by blue states.
Oh, they are. When you look at the welfare numbers, like you're looking at Alabama, you're looking at Mississippi, you're looking at all of these, Louisiana, all these historically red states.
I mean, like, listen, the Republican Party had stopped being conservative, I'd understand it better. But what blows my mind is I'm watching hundreds of millions of people vote for a party that quite literally wanted to slash their programs that they benefit from.
Yes.
And they thought it'd be fine. And then now they're doing it because that's exactly what they said they would do.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what they got voted in for. And then they did it. And then now you've got thousands of people who voted for Trump just set packing with nothing more than not even a thank you for your service.
No, and on top of that, you look at unions for ages and ages. Unions always were aligned with the Democratic Party.
It was always
Most
Democrats.
recently, there were many union groups that came out in support of Trump, which is, could one argue that Trump's agenda is against the interests of the union and their members? Certainly good. But then again, there's sort of this cultural wave that I think we all have to at least have an understanding of, especially those on the left, like to deny it and to sit in some ivory tower and say that it's not happening or whatever. I think is misguided.
Yeah, I think it was. I'll call it 80% culture, 20% economy.
Yeah.
Because you can listen. I get that overall the macro of the economy was actually the best it's ever been. That being said, macro gives you the full picture average. When you zoom into certain pockets, it was really, really good over here for some people, and then absolute dog shit for other people.
Oh, without question.
So of course I understand. If you're in the Midwest, and you live in Detroit or Baltimore or any of these places have been decimated by what NAFTA did and sent all the union worker jobs, overseas.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I get it. It's
been a long time coming.
And then you add that to the cultural stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then of course they're going to vote for Trump. Here's the thing. I have no problem with anyone who voted for Trump because a lot of votes, sometimes you're voting against Kamala, right? A lot of people who voted for Hillary didn't like Hillary. They just hated Trump. They're voting against him. So I understand why people would vote for Trump. What I don't understand is why people literally think he's a good person. That part is crazy to me. Like, listen, if you want to separate your vote from your opinion, I understand that. Again, I don't disagree. You might say, I hate that person, but I have a family to take care of, and I need to put food on the table. I got to make sure I have a roof over my head. I got to make sure my kids can go to school, and this other person who I don't even like, but they're promising better things, and the person that I would vote for is shitting the bed for me.
Yeah, I get that. I get that vote. Totally.
I get it. But what's crazy to me is the people who just the cult of it. He's such a good man. Like, are you not paying attention? And honestly, they're usually not. By the way, they're getting most of their news from social media.
Well,
the clips or the memes that are, by the way, just completely fake half the time.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, verifiably false.
Right.
And that is the 100% of where they're getting most of their media from.
Well, that's the thing, and they have, the right really has developed this messaging machine. And we listened recently that Trump mentioned that there was something like $100 million in condoms to Hamas, which was grossly erroneous.
100%.
It's not even close.
100% false.
But how many people heard the
no one's gonna check it.
statement that it was false?
No one's going to check
they just sort of hook into especially the emotionally galvanizing, inflammatory rhetoric, and some people dig that, man.
So let me ask you a question. Here's the thing. Supreme Court has already said, hey, if you're president, whatever you do on the watch, you're pretty much free and clear.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty kingly.
Yeah.
And, hey, Supreme Court said it. Fine. Okay. Here's my question though. Elon was not elected. He's not president. He is not immune. So let me ask you this: what would be? And let's assume for a second what I already predict to happen, which is that there's no way they last 4 years together as besties. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And I part of me thinks that Trump is giving him all this So he's got a patsy. I think Elon's gonna be the richest patsy on the planet because of everything. If something goes really bad, like really, really bad, Trump can say, nope, that was Elon, not me, and he can fire him. And then here's the thing, Elon's in the wind, because if he doesn't get a pardon from Trump, then let me ask you a question. What are the legal implications for what Elon's doing now that could come back to him later? Lawsuits, civil lawsuits for one.
Of course.
Now, can they sue Elon directly? Right now?
So in terms, like you mentioned,
they said that he's not part of the government.
No, right.
So he has no legal umbrella there.
And he has no sort of
he's a billionaire,
governmental immunity or anything like that. He would not receive the benefit of that. Certainly if he is taking actions that are unconstitutional and that lead to damages for someone who's fired without due process or without adequate government protections, like if there was a union contract in place that said, hey, Elon, you can't do this. Elon did it anyway. Elon could be subject to civil liability for those governmental oversteps in terms of constitutional violations. And so he absolutely could be on the hook. Now he's got more money than God, so he's got the resources to throw his leverage around. But could there be, when all the dust settles and we actually are able to litigate these things in court over the course of months and years, not just weeks, that could give rise to some serious liability for Elon, including for all of his riches that he has in terms of people he may have aggrieved.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as long as he's still on good terms with Trump, then he has the air cover because he knows that Trump will just give him a pardon. So, but even then, that pardon does not apply to civil lawsuits.
Exactly, right.
And someone can sue your ass into the ground. Listen, he's got more money than God, and you probably could never sue him enough times to take it all the way. But he doesn't want that any more than anyone else does, right?
Of course,
nobody wants all their shit taken away, even if it's half of it or whatever.
Huge mess. You have thousands of government employees suing you.
I think he's kind of over his skis on this one. If I'm being honest.
And you mentioned that potential rift we look at just recently.
If they have a rift, he's screwed.
Totally. And Elon had mentioned, or he had sent out this email asking people to justify their work. Well, a bunch of heads of federal agencies, including Kash Patel, have the FBI told his folks, hey, don't respond to that.
Yeah.
So there's already this rift.
Defense Department did it too, Pentagon.
Yes. Yeah. So this is
DOGE,
already percolating, and there's going to be some reckoning of it, and I don't think it's going to be everybody playing nice. I don't think
he makes it. No. If he makes it for a full year, I'd be surprised, let alone 4. Yeah. I do not see, and listen, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm not, I'm taking this clip, I'm going to repost this shit.
Totally. Right.
In 4 years, I'll be like, I told you, right? Or whenever the hell it happens, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's kind of like, it's essentially like a wrongful termination suit times how many thousands?
And here's the thing, they're not going to class action it.
They're going to
do it individually.
Try to milk each claim
because every lawyer trying to make a name for themselves who wants Elon Musk on the other side of that, so they can say that I beat Elon. Think about it. You get a slam dunk case on silver platter as a lawyer, and the defendant is Elon Musk, and you're like, even Elon can't beat this?
I'm taking that to the bank.
Of course you're taking it. You're taking it.
I'm calling all my media connects. It's going to be a big fucking deal, man.
Yeah, you're like, fuck it. And
I don't want to make it a big fucking deal.
Imagine that times 20,000, right? Like 20,000 lawyers coming after you, right? So,
exactly, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna. I have a list of here a couple things I want to go over. Here's the next question: can Trump constitutionally or legally, because those aren't necessarily the same thing, right? There's Venn diagram. They're almost overlapped completely, but there is that little sliver of gray. Sure. Can Trump delete or disband government agencies, and if so, which ones does he have access to, and which ones does he not? And then how does that compare with Congress?
I think if there was a clear-cut answer, we would know that already. Because here's the tension. So Congress is the only entity legally authorized to create a federal agency. On another token, Trump is the head of the executive branch under which the federal agencies fall. So he certainly has some control, some discretion over what happens with those agencies. Can he completely eliminate one? It's not something we've seen recently. All this stuff is rather unprecedented. So a judge is going to get a case like this and say, hey, I don't have a ton of case law to fall back on. I don't have a ton of precedent to look at. And so we've got to look at the language of the Constitution. We've got to look at any sort of authorizations that Trump may have to do that, but I'm not sure he can completely do away with something Congress said needs to be there. It's similar to the clause in the Constitution that allows Congress to fund certain things. So Congress decides, hey, we're going to allocate this money for shit. Trump, if Trump is not given discretion, if there's no executive branch discretion, Trump can't just say, hey, I'm actually not going to spend that money on that. So there are limitations within the executive branch, even though he's at the head of it.
Yeah, you know, I was doing a little bit of research into this, and from my understanding, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but he can any agency that's within the executive branch, he has authority over. Anything outside that, he couldn't even attempt to get rid of. So it has to be something within the executive branch. But then it used to be that presidents would create and eliminate their own agencies, and then one day Congress passed laws that stopped that essentially, and saying, hey, we will create them, you manage them. Yeah. Like, you could decide who's the head of them and all that stuff, right? But we're going to create it and we're going to fund it. And so after they passed the law, which that's what lawmakers do, they pass laws, they eliminated the president's ability to do that. The problem is, no president has ever challenged that since it came in. So if you think about it, it never actually hit the Supreme Court's desk to even decide, is that constitutional? It is very possible that we have a scenario where Congress did something unconstitutional 100 years ago, whatever, how the fuck long ago it was,
they do it all the time.
And just was never challenged because everyone's like, that's reasonable, right?
Totally.
Because we used to be reasonable. We used to say,
we are not in the age
fine.
of reason, my friend.
That's fine. You make them, I'll manage them. It was like this, you know, like husband and wife kind of relationship.
Let's have a good trade-off.
Fine. No one challenged it, but now it's absolutely being challenged. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I guarantee that the Supreme Court is already doing all their research on this.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know there is 0% chance it doesn't land on their desk.
They know it's coming their way.
This is going to be the most prepared they've ever been for something that came to the Supreme Court.
They're like, they got 1,000 pages of research ready to go.
And they're like, that's coming here. Yeah.
No, totally.
We're not getting out of this one.
I mean, what you said was really fundamental to our idea of checks and balances, right? Like, we want there to be a check on the executive and a check on Congress. And so if Congress authorizes this federal agency, gives money towards it, and does not give the executive branch any discretion in terms of the continued existence of this agency, there's an argument that he can't just like throw them all away and say, hey, I don't like those. Well, Congress says they did like them. Yeah. And so does Congress prevail over some unilateral executive action? I think it's reasonably likely that Congress does prevail.
But then here's the problem. Now let's talk about, here's the thing, they already know this. It's not like they didn't read it. Remember, they had 4 years to prepare. I think they've come up with every contingency. I think their strategy of going fast and breaking the shit out of it is how they get around it. Because they might say, that's fine, you can win in court, but by the time you do, no one works there anyway.
Right, exactly.
All their offices, USAID's offices are now ICE offices. So if you think about it, they gutted it so fast that let's say the ruling goes against and the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and what's that going to be 3 years from now?
Yeah,
like,
you know? What, I mean, sure, we'll start putting it back together, hire one person a month.
But what back together?
On what?
And exactly. With what political will, and with what, I completely agree with you that, and I gotta like tip my hat a little bit to the sort of pragmatic approach that they're taking. Is it extrajudicial? Is it extra legal? Maybe, but what they're doing is they're trying to make this transformation in a way that is going to be really difficult to be undone, even through the court system. Yeah. And I think it's all by design. I think that's
because the thing is, I don't know if a court can order you to go recreate something. I think they can stop you from doing it again.
I feel you. Yeah.
Right? I don't know how. Like, how would you put together? Yeah, because even if you said, "Hey, you got to put it back," okay, but there's 1,000 more questions that come after that, and they're not in the business of creating agencies, so they're not going to be like, oh, you have to put it back, and you have to do it in this time, and you got to hire this person. Yeah, they can't. No, so realistically, all they can say is don't do it again ever.
And what if
that's it?
Totally. And what if like the Department of Education goes away, there's a lawsuit, and the court says, hey, it can't go away, and Trump's still in power, and he's like, all right, well, I'll put like one person in there.
He's like, all right, Department of Education is Josh.
Right.
Josh is 21 from Nebraska, has his degree in psychology, and he's very motivated to make some great policy changes.
Right.
And he's going to work for $50,000 a year.
What are the courts going to do?
What are the courts
going to do? Say, oh no, hey, we're going to sit in on the interviews? No, dude.
No.
Like they've cut their own shit. And so
listen, it's
there's
brilliant.
an enforcement issue.
I'll give them that. If I wanted to do something like that, and I knew that it was going to be challenged and I would probably lose,
yeah,
I would just do it as fast as physically
make it
possible.
as difficult as you can.
I would, yeah.
So even if it's technically an L, if you all can't really like bring about the win that you say you have the authority to bring about, like, then is it really an L? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of analogies, and it's kind of like the Vietnam War, right? Like the Viet Cong were under no delusions that they could go toe-to-toe with the American military. But they didn't have to. They said, no, we just got to make this difficult for you for as long as possible, and eventually you'll just give up. Like, what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to go through all of our tunnels? There's thousands. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to bomb everything above us? That's fine. We're down here.
Totally.
Who cares? Like again, the pragmatic approach. It's like, yes, you're going to win, but
are you really gonna
are
win?
you though?
No, totally.
From your definition of winning, you're gonna lose. From my definition of winning, I win.
Yes. No, I feel you. And it's just, I mean, like expelling thousands of employees, those folks are going to find other jobs. They're going to move on with their lives. And so to try to like reconstruct that through the, as slow as the wheels of justice turn, months, if not years from now, it's not going to happen, man. And so.
Well, I think this is going to, here's the thing. They don't expect to keep control for 4 years. They expect to have it for 2 years. I think they're pragmatic in saying, no, Democrats are going to take at least one of the houses, whether it be Senate or Congress.
Think so?
By after year 2. I think they're preparing for that. I think my point is that their speed is not indicative of a 4-year plan. Their speed is indicative of a 2-year plan.
Yeah.
And I think, here's the thing. Let's not forget, like I said, most of the agencies that they're going after, remember, Pentagon's next, right? Most of the agencies they're going after are going to be gutted, and they're heavily Republican-leaning base, right?
Yes.
Like that's what's like absurd about the whole thing, right? So, and I'm like
all of
this
these
is like
CIA agents.
I mean, remember the pendulum swings.
They got Trump flags in their house, man.
Yeah, that's my point, right? The pendulum swings politically just as hard the other way as it did the first way. I think where this comes to bite them is not. Here's the thing. I think they're going to be making the same mistake that the Biden administration made. So follow me on this. The Biden administration fucked up because they said, look at the whole economy. All the numbers are great. And people are like, okay, yeah, but my life sucks. And they're like, no, you're fine. And it's like, no, I'm not. Like, I literally can't afford anything. What are you talking about? And they're like, no, look at these charts and graphs. That was the death knell, right? When it came to the economy, that's where they fucked up.
It's very Harris-coded. Yes.
So I think that the Trump administration might end up making a similar mistake where they say, no, remember, you told us, look, we saved all this money. Look at these charts and graphs.
Yeah.
Look, we saved $100 billion or $300, I don't care, any number, doesn't matter what it is. Look, we saved $500 billion. But then they're like, yeah, but you fired me and I couldn't get another job because the market got flooded with everyone who does what I do. So I went under. Why would I keep voting for you?
Yeah.
Like, I think they might start making the same mistake, which is absurd because I thought, no one's going to make that one twice, right? Like, just telling someone, like, it was almost gaslighting the way the Biden administration did. Totally. They were like, no, you're totally fine. Look at the charts and graphs. And at a certain point, the jobs report's going to come out. And I guarantee, I swear to God, oh boy, let's quote this right here. I guarantee there will be a quote when the jobs report comes out and it shows hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs lost. Yeah. And a lot of it's going to be attributable to the ones that they got rid of. Yep. And I guarantee Trump is going to say, well, if you take out all the government jobs you got rid of, then really the numbers are great. And it's like, those numbers count. Like, those are jobs. Like, what are you talking about?
The dude is sitting at home on watching TV. It's like, I'm a human being. Like, I'm one of those numbers.
It's like, well, if you got rid of all the votes for everyone else, I won in a landslide. It's like, no, but they all count. Like, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
No, I feel you. No, I think there's, and I think there become, in terms of that kind of like institutionalized messaging, I think there becomes some condescension. It feels like you're being talked down to, especially for the folks who are legitimately aggrieved, whose lives have changed. And so I think that Trump administration runs that risk. And on top of that, I think their accounting fucking sucks. And I think like the numbers they're putting out aren't necessarily the huge wins that people thought they were that they put them out to be.
Well, listen, I am willing to take a step back and say, well, hey man, they're only a month in.
Yeah,
right? Like
sure,
I get it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but they're sprinting the whole marathon. So I think that's something that people have to realize. They are literally out of the gate going as fast as they can, and they have every intention of running that fast for 26 point something miles, right?
Can they keep this up though? Do you think
absolutely not? No, but what I'm saying is that this is why they're flooding the zone. This is why they're full court press, because it's all right. How about this? Here's an analogy. You know how like it takes your brain 20 minutes to figure out that you're full?
Yeah.
So really, if you eat as much as you can in 20 minutes before you're full, you're like, haha, like you beat it. So really, they're just trying to beat the clock.
Play that game every day.
If they sprint as fast as they can, by the time those Supreme Court, and it's going to have to be Supreme Court, rulings start being handed down and stopping certain things permanently, the amount of damage or progress, however you want to look at it, that has been done up until that point is exactly what they were looking for. I don't think they have any delusions thinking they're going to be able to do this for 4 years. I think they're on a 2-year clock, and even then, I think they're on a 1-year clock, because they're probably gauging that it would take about a year for the first lawsuits to start and start working their way up the chain before they can even hit the Supreme Court docket. I think they're just doing the math. I think this is a 1-year sprint.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, and that timeline makes sense, and that seems like what it would have to be, because it's just such a fast and furious pace. You know, it depends on the circumstances, but like I said, I'm all about hustling. I'm all about finding avenues and capitalizing on them, and God bless them in that sense. But I think that there is a real human toll, and there is a potential backlash that rests behind that. And so as we continue to these people feel the loss of their jobs, their livelihood, their entire lives are flipped upside down. I think that over time, that's going to come to roost, and that could be problematic especially when it comes to the midterm elections.
I think, but I think Democrats are going to have to seize on that, and by that I mean let me rephrase. They're going to have to seize on that while also not making the same goddamn mistakes from the last time. Because this became a culture war, which we'll get to in a little bit, but. All right, my next question is this.
Dems are sucking at that.
So here's what I've started to see happen. I've seen Elon Musk tweet attacking judges now.
Yeah.
And this is where this starts to get really anti-American, right? Listen, here's the thing. I don't care if you like Elon Musk or Trump. You cannot look at me in the face and say that ignoring one of the branches of government, even if you don't like it, is somehow American. It's not. Republicans are all about the rule of law. Except apparently until the point where it goes against them, and then no. Now that judge is anti-constitutional. That judge is a problem, and he just must be radical. Half these judges that are making the rulings against them were appointed by Trump.
Yes,
how about
of course.
Here's what I'll give anyone. I'll say take every ruling by any judge not appointed by Trump. I'll even just start there, and it's the same shit. It's still, and their opinions are lambasting. Like, they're not holding back. When they're like, they basically say in their rulings, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, that's reading between the lines. And these are the Trump judges. And this is what I'm saying. Like, again, even if you want to get rid of all the Democrat ones and say, oh, they must be biased. Okay, fine. Let's use yours. They're still literally given the same rulings.
Totally.
Right?
I mean, it sort of comes down to fundamental principles of separation of powers. You know, there's that saying, like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. There's a sense that even if it goes against you, we have this fundamental system that's set up, this arrangement that has allowed for prosperity, for freedom, for fairness, for all of these amazing ideals. And we are going to throw that away if we just start saying, oh, well, I don't like that because they didn't rule in my favor, and so fuck the judicial branch and whatever. And I think that is one of the most dangerous potential positions that the Trump administration has espoused from practically the outset.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was military. My parents were both military. Their parents were all like, it goes as far back as we can find it. Both sides of my family, okay? Seeing an American flag burned in the streets gives me a visceral reaction.
I get you.
And yet, I would quite literally fight and die for the right to someone to be able to do that. I don't want him to do it. I want to punch him in the fucking face for doing it.
Sure.
But a real American understands the difference and understands that, yeah, but that's part of freedom of speech. You don't get to say, I want freedom of speech when it's this, this, and this.
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, if the Democrats did that, then they're also wrong.
Yes.
I don't care what side you're on.
Without question.
care that you don't get to say that you're for the Constitution, but only when it benefits you. You don't get to say that you're a pro-American and that you're, a patriot. But I want to get rid of these branches, and I want to make our president a king, and I want him to go for a third or fourth term, or not have elections, like whatever. Like you don't get to say both. Here's the thing: if you like the idea of a King Trump or a president for life Trump, like they do in South America or whatever, if you're for that, just say it. Just say, I love America, but I want it to change, and I want it to be more like this now. Just say that.
Yeah.
Don't say that you're defending the Constitution. That's like Bible thumpers who will say, well, I follow the Bible. Really? All the parts? Because I can pull out some crazy-ass pages in there, A, that you probably shouldn't be doing, and B, I could also pull out some pages that you probably should be doing and you're fucking not. Yeah. So do not tell me, listen, just say that you're Christian, right, and that you do your best. Just say that. Just say, listen, I don't agree with everything in there, but I like to try to find the things that can make my life and the life of the people I love better. That's fine. Just say that. But admit that you're not 100% behind it. Just say that.
Totally. No, I feel it. And I think historically we have had a largely principled democratic political system where we have these norms, we have these expectations. People, it becomes reliable. People kind of set their watch to them like, hey, you can say some shit, and even if people don't like it, you can still do it. You can criticize the leader of the country, whereas in other countries you can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
But if we get
away from that,
if we become to be not principled and only relying on, hey, what is advantageous to me in this particular circumstance, regardless of what like my fundamental pillars of who I am say, I think that is where we get away from a democratic idea of America.
Yeah, I mean, like, I 100% agree with that. And like I said, I'm fine if the overwhelming majority of America says that we want to be more autocratic. That's law of the jungle, baby. We can be democratic and still change how that democracy works.
Sure, of course.
We don't have to have three equal branches to be a democracy. That's just the experiment that we instituted with the Founding Fathers. Things change. I get it. As long as everyone, at least the majority, is voting for that and admitting that that's what it is.
Yeah.
When you gaslight people and say, no, I'm a patriot and it's all about the Constitution, and then you literally,
and I think I'm a king,
literally vote and share memes and comment and like things and promote things that are literally the opposite of that, then now you're an asshole. Like, sorry, but you're a hypocrite. You're an asshole.
And you look at like some of these attacks on the judicial branch, on judges who are rendering rulings that one side doesn't like. Usually you take a loss with dignity and you say, hey, they ruled against me, whatever, we'll come back on it next time.
Regroup. Try a new way.
And I think that's the American spirit. It's not being a whiny little fucking bitch and saying, oh, these people don't like me, let's impeach these like district court federal judges, which those impeachments never fucking happened until now.
Yeah, attacking judges for not ruling in your favor is some serious small dick energy. Like,
totally.
Seriously.
No.
Because, you had a great point. I'm glad you said this. You said that taking a loss, licking your wounds, retreating for a minute, figuring out a new plan and coming back and attacking again.
That's America, man.
That is fucking America.
Fuck yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, sir. That I will say. That's America. But, like you said, being a whiny little bitch about it not going your way and then saying, well, I'm going to just use my platform and my money to try to get rid of you.
Right.
Now you're a whiny little bitch.
To the subversion and undermining of the most critical pillars of our democracy that exist. Like, I just think it's so reckless. Yeah. It's so self-serving. And it's just so out of touch with, like, you look at, like, Reagan Republicans. You look at that era of Republicans.
That man is turning over his grave right now.
How do those people look at the political climate now and relate to it on the Republican side?
They just put up a picture of Reagan in, I think it was Oval Office, where it used to be, I think it was Hayes. I'm trying to remember who they used to have up there. But they literally are like putting up pictures of Reagan at, like, prominently. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Reagan would have thrown Trump in front of him when he was, when he was being shot, right? He'd be like, nope, take this guy. Because there's no way a 0% chance that Reagan would have ever signed off on anything that Trump is doing.
God.
Listen, and that's fine. Again, I'm not saying. Listen, I have a ton of Republican views. Okay, right? Like we talked about this before. I'm like, hey, I'm a white male in America. I'm an entrepreneur, former military. Okay, my father's side of the family is all from Louisiana. Okay, so and I love guns. Like, I that is a lot of Republican things I just said in one shot there, right?
I get it.
Now, on the other hand, right? I was raised on the West Coast. I had my mom raised me mostly when I was younger, and she worked 3 jobs. I was a latchkey kid. I was letting myself out and walking to school, and I'm coming home and didn't see her until that night.
Sure.
She worked 3 jobs, busted her ass, and we still needed help. She's not lazy. Having social programs helps people in those kind of situations. I get that, and I promote it, right? I like it, right? I also see. So again, I have immigrants for grandparents, right? Like I understand, and I see, and I've experienced, and I've first person POV.
Yeah.
On both sides of this. I have a foundation that helps with veterans with PTSD. Right. That's a huge right-leaning demographic. And I love them for showing up and helping because I want to help veterans, right?
Totally.
So but it's that middle ground. And here's the thing. And we've talked about this before, but I started this podcast because I'm like, you know what? Everyone is telling us that everyone is split and divided. I call fucking bullshit.
I get you.
I think that the numbers, here's why I think the numbers look that way. Numbers don't lie. They're just misinterpreted sometimes, right? I think that the numbers show that we're super divided, not because we are, but because the rhetoric, the extreme side of the left and the extreme side of the right are so fucking loud. They make the Tea Party look quiet. And those guys were loud, right?
Right.
And you get these two sides that are so loud.
Yeah.
And then they do all the talking, and then they raise all the money, and they put it out there. And when it comes to vote, people, let's say you're center left or center right, you're looking at your side going, I don't even agree with half that shit, but I can't vote for the other guy either. So you kind of just go to your corner and you cast your vote.
Yeah.
And so what I think you have is this massive middle. I think it's like a spike here and then a big, huge bell curve in the middle, and then it settles out, and then another spike here. But we're only seeing the ends.
Oh, I feel like
so. I started the podcast because no, I want to talk about the middle. I want to be the voice and interview people who can see things from a more pragmatic view. From both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think the majority of the population is. And I just, nobody's talking for them. It's either far left or far right. I can't think of one person. And that is trying and also has the it factor.
Yeah, I don't,
listen, Trump's a rock star.
Yeah.
He's a fucking rock star.
Totally.
I don't like him. I don't have to. I can recognize the guy's a fucking rock
Kiss.
star.
I fucking hate Kiss, but they're rock stars.
Well, I mean, it's like Howard Stern. Howard Stern, they did a study back like in the early 90s when it was the peak of his career, or mid-90s, and it was something stupid like 30 or 40% of his active listening base completely hated the man. Okay?
Yeah.
But they tuned in every single day.
I know.
What's funny about that, it's like, objectively, he had the it factor, right? Trump has the it factor. I mean, that's a once-in-a-generation politician. Right? The left doesn't have that version.
I completely
They haven't
agree.
had.
That's the problem.
The only guy they had that came close was Obama, and he's done. He already did his 2. Like they nailed it.
Yeah.
They took their rock star, they put him out there, and he got his 2 terms.
I agree.
But now they got nobody.
But who is the correlate on the left? I just don't see it.
Listen, I
thought Cory Booker had some momentum behind him for a while, and then that kind of like fizzled out. Like, who is it?
But here's the thing. I'm not looking for a rock star for the left. I'm looking for a rock star for the middle.
Yeah.
I think. Listen, I don't believe in the 3-party system. It's just never going to happen. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I think we'll have a civil war before we ever have a 3rd party. Okay, so let's just get that out of our head. We're going to have 2 parties. Now, they might switch and cycle through what their values are, right?
Because again, they've done it before.
You go back 20 years, it's literally flipped.
Totally.
It's completely
And then
ridiculous.
you go back like 100 years before that, and there's another flip.
Like, you get these Republicans that are like, oh, well, this is the party of Lincoln. No, it's not. The party of Lincoln was the Democratic version back then. Yeah, he was a Republican, but that's when if you were to list and not put a title at the top and just list all the values,
look at the
policies and values of Lincoln.
Yeah.
And then you just go, well, who do you think that is?
Yeah.
It's gonna be Democrats.
Take the name off.
Yeah, take the name off.
Do a questionnaire.
Yeah. The party
Everyone
of
will be
Lincoln.
like, oh, clearly.
It's like, you don't know history, dum-dum. Like, have you even read anything that Lincoln's ever written? Like, why would you even say that? Like, I get, okay, all on the piece of paper, sure. But again, we go through these cycles. And I literally we both lived through a cycle where
Yes.
when we grew up,
It's a weird position to be in.
the Republicans, how they look now is exactly what the Democrats were, and vice
Totally.
versa. It's absurd.
No, I know. And, you know, Republicans used to have like an air of, like I said, like an air of dignity, an air of at least espoused values.
There was elitism.
Like
They were the
morals.
elites.
Yes.
Literally.
They were, and they talked about like
They were
respect
educated.
and loyalty and stuff like that, and,
Yeah.
and that was actually effectuated in their party. And now we're at the point like Trump is shitting on McConnell, and like there are all these like it's just such a sea
Trump's not a
change.
Republican. What's interesting?
Yeah.
Here's what's crazy, and this, God, I hate saying this because again, I'll give credit or points where it's due. Ironically, I think Trump is a moderate, and that sounds absurd when you think of the things he says and does. But hear me out. For one, he's not conservative. There is
No.
This is the first. You look at his first term. Nothing he did was conservative. I mean, he also couldn't get anything passed because he would sit there. I'll never forget this. This blew my mind. He goes into a meeting with a bunch of the top, congressional and Senate heads, right? And I don't remember what the topic they were working on was, but I remember one of like the Senate Republicans had like walked out of the room, like the main guy who was there for the negotiation. And in the meantime, Nancy Pelosi starts chatting it up with Trump. And he just goes, "Oh, that's a great idea, Nancy." And then he walks out to the Rose Garden and just announces this new thing. And they're like, "What the fuck
Shooting from the hip,
just
that
happened?"
guy.
And like no Republican, no conservative in their right mind would have ever agreed to that or even said anything or been on her side at all. Trump is just Trump.
Well, I'm not a Trump fan, but is there some value to having
100%.
that intellectual flexibility or at least openness and like,
Well, here's the thing. Again, so yes, there's value. So this is what I hate about it. And I did another episode with the Veterans Chair on my foundation, and we were talking about how dictators, right? How like the most efficient form of government technically is dictatorship because it moves very fast.
Yeah, right.
If you have a good idea, you can implement it immediately. You don't got to ask anyone. There's no voting
bad
on
idea.
it. Here's the problem. Most people who gravitate and get those dictator positions are fucking psychopaths.
Yeah.
And usually fairly homicidal in respect to that as well.
That's how
so
it plays
it's not
out.
a good crowd that gets there, right?
Right, yeah.
And the people they're surrounded with also
Doesn't, like,
equally
self-select the,
it's
guy you'd want as your
not the
neighbor.
model that's the problem. It's the person. So what's interesting is that if you take Trump and whatever I or anyone else thinks about him out of the equation, and if you were to just again write on paper the things that he's done, that would actually, and we're going to include the first term, we're going to wrap it in because it's a 2-term president now. If you were to collate all that, it's actually fairly interesting. A lot of the stuff he did kind of sits in the middle.
Yeah,
the problem is the way he goes about it and the things he says and what he tries to do. Let's not forget, the reason why he didn't get a lot of stuff passed is because he just got in his own way. This is a new Trump. He's getting surrounded by experts now. Not people that, I don't know. Hiring everyone from Fox News does not make a great cabinet, in my opinion. But at least the people who came to him prepared.
Yeah.
Although I think we're batshit
Rubio,
crazy.
he's got some decent
I like
picks in
Rubio.
there,
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I may not agree with half the shit he says or does.
Sure.
But he seems
But at
like a
least
good
he's
man.
like a competent, decent
He's
person.
competent. But here's the problem. We shouldn't look. We're like, oh my God, Rubio, yes.
Yeah, that's like the minimum bar.
We shouldn't.
It's
we
not like
shouldn't be
having a target
celebrating.
manager. It's like competent and decency. You need there should be a higher bar a little bit.
Yeah, like we're sitting there going, oh my God, yay, Rubio. And it's like, there's like 30 more positions that are he's completely shut the bed on. But we're so happy that because the bar is so low, right? Like you said.
Right.
So let me ask you, I want to circle back to something that we started with on this, and this was about attacking judges. So what are the legal implications of doing that? Are there laws in place that protect judges from slander or attacking on social media? I know that like when you're in a case, there's a lot of rules, but but what about when you're out of the case? Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like judges have the same protections as everybody in terms of defamation. You can't make a knowingly false statement about them, that kind of thing. There's also some criminal laws like attempting to influence a public servant. If you impose a threat upon a judge with the intention of changing their position on a case, that's potentially a felony attempting to influence a public servant. And so there are some legal ramifications for those actions, but there are not many. And I think most judges would say, hey, look, I know I'm going to take some flack in this position. So the judges aren't necessarily gung-ho on exercising those protections, that kind of thing. And so, it seems like it's kind of been open season on judges, especially in the past couple weeks.
This is where it is dangerous, though, man. I mean, because that's the thing. It's like if you start, and let's not forget, Elon Musk has and Donald Trump both have the resources and the platform. And I'm talking about outside of the government. I'm like, even if they were retired and from any kind of government stuff, they have this ability to make real hell for judges. And the thing is, people forget judges are elected for the most part. Some are appointed, but at the lower levels, they go through regular elections, which means they're kind of politicians at least for a minute,
of course,
until they get the bench, right? And not all of the judges at the lower levels, they're not lifetime appointments.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So what you have now is this whole very fragile, vulnerable section of judges that now might have to consider, again, just like a senator or a congressman, like, do I do the right thing or do I protect my career?
Of course. Can they be politically swayed?
And listen, I'll get the extreme people say, you should always do the right things. Okay, well, let's define right. Right for the country, right for you, or right for my family?
Right.
Right?
Hard to say what's right.
Right? So it's like, okay, like, I get it, man. Like, there's very few things I wouldn't do for my little girl.
Oh, sure.
For my daughter. There's not a whole lot of laws I wouldn't break for her.
And I'm telling you,
I get it.
In the legal world, the vast majority of folks are trying to do the right thing and abiding by the law, but the entire majority of folks are humans, man. And they operate like humans. If there is pressure on them that might cause them to lose their job, would that be some motivation to at least consider changing course on a particular ruling? Certainly, would any human being would be a fool to at least not think about that.
So district court judges are not lifetime, right?
So federal, so state district court judges typically are not lifetime appointments, and in many jurisdictions they are elected.
Yeah, see, and this is where the problem is, right? Is that's where the cases start.
Yeah,
I don't think you can just go. Listen, there are exceptions. There are things you can bring directly to the Supreme Court if they're at an emergency level and the Supreme Court allows it. But usually, especially when you have thousands of court cases against you as a federal government, they all usually start at the district level and then they go from there. The danger here is that if they are successful in intimidating judges with the social media, because remember, then all they do is they name the judge, they name the district, and then that galvanizes them to try to run against them. That's just the part of them losing their job.
Totally.
But then when you send a tweet out to fucking 400 million people, I'm pretty sure the crazies are coming out, and now they're
getting death threats.
They're getting death threats and whatnot. And remember, they don't have Secret Service protection.
No.
These are everyday judge is just
like
a regular person who lives next door to you. Like,
exactly.
He's in a condo, man. Like,
it's a
or a house down the street.
And if they, one concern is that they are subverting this check on the executive branch by making these veiled threats, by bringing or calling them into disfavor and having pressure against them. And if those judges begin to cave, what real check is there on the executive branch? And if there's no real check on the executive branch, what sort of separation of powers do we have? What kind of country do we have?
Yeah, and again, like I said, if everybody wants to vote and say, we want to change the American experiment and we want to update it, they could say, hey, it's been a long time since we've updated this. I understand that. I get it. If they said, hey, let's get rid of these branches, let's make them very unequal. Let's make the executive branch 80% of the equation and everyone else is just there to support it.
Yeah.
And the majority of people voted for that. That is democracy. So I might not like it. I might be terrified of it. But at least it's not being stolen in that sense. It's not being manipulated and power grabbed. It's literally being voted for.
Right.
Because again, maybe we change. Maybe the America that when me and you die one day, maybe the America that we leave behind might look nothing. It already doesn't, but it might be completely different. We might be a powerhouse country that completely dominates its sphere of influence on our part of the earth, and we just do deals with the other big players like Russia and China. Maybe we let China take out the whole South Pacific. We let Russia take out Europe. And I don't mean kill them. I mean like take them over. And then we say, cool, we'll take down Canada and South America. So you guys have your stuff over there. You got your stuff over there. We got our stuff here. We're all so big that we couldn't possibly think about going after each other. So let's just play nice. Maybe that's what the future looks like. I don't know. but I don't want that personally.
One brilliant tool that the founders put into this great experiment is that we maintain these fundamental principles, but we also are adaptable to change. Like, we don't have slavery anymore. There have been massive changes that we have made in this country.
Yeah, but that's when we used to work together.
Yeah.
Remember, this implied, and what you're saying was based on the idea that there was an honor to it. Let's not forget, the founding fathers stood around and they're smoking their pipes and shit, and if they didn't agree with someone, that's fine, but they could shake their hand.
Yeah.
They could say, well, we'll come to an agreement for the better of the country.
Yes.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Totally.
Let's be 100% clear.
And, one illustration of that in the legal world is Supreme Court opinions. So they used to be like, 2 to 7 or 1 to 6. Like it was, even if the matter didn't politically align with the politics of an individual judge, they would try to do the right thing based on precedent, based on the law.
Yeah.
Here we have such a split. Nowadays, almost all of the opinions are so split down partisan lines that it's really just these judges voting for the side that their politics.
Every outcome almost in advance.
And that didn't used to happen. Yeah. And so I think that's an alarming sort of canary in the coal mine, showing us that, hey, we're getting so divided that this sense of cooperation, this sense of a mutual undertaking, even when I don't always like it, I think that's becoming to be lost on us.
So I think the last people we had that exhibited any level of country over self was the late John McCain.
Yes.
Right? Republican senator from Arizona. And again, I didn't agree with everything that all of his positions. I really didn't.
No.
There was a good 30 to 40%. I was like, nah, no. But he was a good man.
Oh, yes.
And he actually did believe in his country. And the guy was a POW in war. Like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. And didn't Trump, call him a coward and shit on him?
He said, I prefer my soldiers don't get caught.
Yeah. That's not something an American leader 50 years ago would say.
No, that would have been a deal killer immediately. But that's what's crazy.
Right.
And again, people who say they're for the military literally don't care that the president said that, basically talks shit about a POW. Who has more honor in his pinky than that man will ever have in his whole McDonald's body.
I can't disagree with him. I can't disagree with it. And you look at McCain, one of his last votes was on Obamacare, and everyone in his party was like, no, dude, just fall in line, come with us, do what we think should be done. And he did what his conscience told him. Yeah. And those are becoming so few and far between nowadays that it's alarming.
The next one after that was Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
She knew there was no way she was going to come out alive on it, and she did it anyway, right? And then I think the only person we have left, and this people don't talk about him much, I think the only person that's trying to keep this country together, legitimately, is Supreme Court Justice John Roberts.
Ah, interesting.
Because I read up on him.
Agree with you.
So before it was what? 6-3.
Yeah,
it was 5-4, I believe.
5-4. It was 5-4 conservative.
And he was the rational voice. He was he was a swing vote.
Yes,
really.
That's right.
He was technically one of the 5, but really he would bounce back and forth.
Right.
It was a very even Supreme Court.
Yes.
You knew that, it might go on one party lines, but it came down to Roberts, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Now, he can't technically do much. It's not all on his shoulders. Well, how about this?
He doesn't have the power to.
Yeah, he doesn't have the power, but now what he's doing is he's sitting there he's trying to have conversations with the other Supreme Court just to say, no, listen, if we do this is you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
I think he's in a terrible position. He shouldn't be the only one having to do this, but I think he's the only person I can think of in any kind of politics, because the judicial branch is still politics. You deal with it.
Yeah.
Even it's just a lifetime appointment. I think he's the only one that's trying to keep this whole thing together. And I think we're going to see, you specifically, I think are going to be very interested in seeing what happens when these justices have to start ruling on these things soon.
It's gonna be it's such a peculiar scenario, especially when we're talking about Trump-appointed judges and his agenda. And do they feel some loyalty? Do they feel some duty to him?
I think he's terrified. I think Roberts is terrified. Yeah. I think he's terrified of being the head of a Supreme Court that may not even be able to do anything about it. So this brings me to my last question. Once the Supreme Court said, basically anything you do as president while you're president, as long as it's under presidential job, right?
Yeah.
Like it has relates to the country, right?
Yeah.
Then you're basically immune from prosecution after.
Right.
That gave that man a bulletproof vest, metaphorically.
Yes.
Maybe even physically
Totally.
speaking. Just, I mean, the guy dodged a bullet by literally. Well, he didn't even dodge it; it hit him. But my God, that's another story. That's
Yeah.
a whole other podcast. But they gave him a metaphorical bulletproof vest to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And here's the thing: there's no consequences after. So here's my question: once they said there's no consequences for anything you do, I don't think they considered what if the thing he does is not listen to you. If these judgments come down to the Supreme Court, listen, if you're Trump and you're like, you can't touch me after no matter what.
Yeah.
Before I leave, I can pardon everyone
Oh, right.
that was related to it. And I control the DOJ. I control the military.
Yeah.
So who the fuck is
What
gonna?
are you gonna do, John Roberts?
You're not the like back in the day. The Pope had their own army. I think
Yeah, yeah.
actually they still technically do, right? But it was a thing where it was like, okay, well you can go against, like a king could disobey the Pope, but the Pope had an army.
Yeah, yeah,
He
right.
could send his army. They had an enforcement division of religion back then. We do not have an enforcement division of our Supreme Court judiciary.
No.
They don't. Now I do understand that there are these very weird cutouts in the law that allow, I believe, the Supreme Court to, is it like deputize certain law enforcement to be for the Supreme Court to enforce it. But the irony is that still falls under the DOJ, which he controls. So what are they going to do? And who the hell is going to be like, I'm going to come arrest you? Good luck.
That's
right. So I guess my question is,
right.
in your opinion, or just even like, what the fuck would happen if the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that on something that he really was relying on?
Yeah.
And now he's really pissed because he hired them, basically, right? And in his mind, they turned on him.
Yeah.
What happens if he just says, fuck you?
The ominous prospect of that happening leaves the Supreme Court with very few cards to play because they don't have military power. They don't. So what do they? So they have contempt power. So if someone disagrees with their ruling, they could try to find them or try to initiate a contempt proceeding, and that's what
I think they can
up to
deputize the
90 to
marshals.
180 days in jail.
Yeah.
And
How do you enforce it?
But how do you enforce it on top of that if the president has immunity? If they have official acts immunity, if
my
that
point.
applies to the criminal law, it probably applies to some sort of contempt citation. What are they going to do, man? That really the way that this country has worked is there is an underlying agreement amongst civil, nationally minded folks who want to see this country do well and prosper and maintain fairness and the rule of law. And if that agreement is breached by one party, particularly the head of one particular branch, then it's chaos and it's potentially the end of America.
I think the only thing that that we could hope for is that if he just decided to say, fuck you, I'm not doing that, that gives the air cover that, remember, most Republican senators and congressmen, they don't fucking like him.
Yeah.
They don't. Here's how you know this. Every time they're about to retire, what do? They go against him.
Yeah.
McConnell is on his way out, and he's
That's
like,
right.
nah, fuck Trump.
That's a good point.
If every single person who no longer has anything to lose turns against you, they didn't like you to begin with. They were just going along with it because either their constituents, are heavy in that, or they just wanted to keep their job.
You look at Paul Ryan, who was like a superstar.
When every single one of your cabinet goes and writes a book about how crazy you are,
Totally.
I'm pretty sure they're not the problem. And
Yeah.
if they are, you're still the problem because you hired them.
And totally, and that is the problem that some people worry that we're inching towards is this breakdown of the fundamental principles of our system, fundamental checks and balances. You just ignore one branch. Could Congress somehow provide funds for some kind of military operation to go against the executive branch? What a catastrophic thing to even think of. And
They could try to impeach him. But I guess my point was saying it'll provide the air cover for them to go to impeachment proceedings.
Yeah.
Because I think at that point they can now say, hey guys, I totally had your side, but I mean he did ignore the Supreme Court judgment, so we have to impeach him. I think he would if he said no and just said screw you to a Supreme Court judgment, I think that is the air cover, because all the Democrats would vote for it.
Right.
So you just need the right proportion of Republicans to also vote for it.
And how many of those folks are vertebrates?
Yeah, how many of those folks
how many of those? Man, I don't know.
How many of those?
Some, of course, but
How many of those did he talk shit about?
right.
Insult their wives or their
you
looks.
Called my
or
wife, you called Ted Cruz's wife ugly and shit. Is he really going to come to Trump's aid in some catastrophic
I think it gives them
constitutional
the
issue?
air cover. I think that would be the actual downfall of Trump. And I think that's also why I haven't seen much of that anymore about them just saying ignoring it. I think they're delaying action. They're playing with it.
Yeah.
They're workshopping this.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, listen, they're
hedging and they're like equivocating in their statements and shit. And
Trump is great at the branding side of it. Here's what's funny.
Yeah.
We talk about like the legalities of like immigration and all this other stuff too. And what's really funny is that this is where the branding comes in. Trump's first term, he deported 800,000 immigrants, give or take. And his second term, well, I mean, he's probably been a record pace. But to compare that, Obama's first term, he deported 1.6 million, literally twice as many. But you heard about Trump's 800,000. You didn't hear shit about Obama's because that wasn't on brand for the Democrats. It was something that they chose to do, but they didn't want to promote it. They didn't want to slap their label on it, and they didn't want to shout. I remember he did like one press conference about it, and I never saw anything about it again. Yeah. I think more or less like, hey, I told everyone, cool, let's move on. And then just secretly, not secretly, but just under the wire, they're just doing it. Sure. In his 2 terms, I think the total was something like 3 million. Right? Obama is the GOAT when it comes to a lot of people to deportations. Yeah. But Trump might be on that path to beat him. We'll see. So I guess let's finish with this. If you are a Supreme Court justice, because this is the part that's scary now. So we talked about what happens if he says, "Go fuck yourself." Well, you just said there's nothing they can do. And remember, the second they blink, the second people realize that the emperor has no clothes, right? The second that they realize that the Supreme Court has no teeth that can possibly bite into him, why does anyone give a shit what Supreme Court says? So here's my question. Do you think there's a possibility that the Supreme Court might favor rulings for Trump to avoid a situation where they rule against him and he says, "Go fuck yourself," and then now they have zero authority or power? Do you think they might hedge toward him when they normally wouldn't, just to try to maintain and retain the judiciary supremacy as it stands, even if it's a house of cards?
I think the folks in those positions, love them or hate them, are brilliant jurists with a consciousness to the state of the nation, to their power, and to how their rulings could affect the stability of the nation as a whole. It's happened in the past where there have been like the schooling integration ruling was rather destabilizing, and there were some folks who were second guessing that decision because of the social impact it had, regardless of what the law said. So absolutely, that is front of mind for them. And could it influence how they rule in a way that they think might save the nation, even if it is contradictory to the law? I think that
cut off an arm to save the body.
Totally, I think that is. I
can't believe that our Supreme Court justices are basically in a Saw movie right now, right? But Jigsaw is Trump. He's like, "Hello, justices." He comes on a little tricycle. He's like, "I brought you here." Like, and this whole monologue about that. And he's like, "Now you must choose between the nation and your authority." Yeah, it's like, choose wisely.
Very famous horror movie.
10 minutes. Because it's becoming a horror movie,
alarmingly analogous to where we're at.
And that is the alarm bells that I have. But listen, Eric, thank you so much for coming on. How can people find you? And I mean, hell, you're on the damn news daily. How can they not find you? I guess at this point.
Check out. I'm on Fox 5 DC a lot, CBS, ABC, Newsmax, but also check out at Werner Faddis. That's where we do sort of social media for the firm, but also just like some fun, cool shit, different events and what have you. And check us out, man.
Awesome. Well, listen, everybody. Again, thank you for listening to Granger for President. We're going to be doing a lot more podcasts like this. We're going to have, and hell, put in the comments, what do you want to hear about, right? What are the things that are important to you? I don't care if you're on the right or on the left or if you're in the middle. Tell me what is the most important to you and what you want to hear about, and we'll get it on the show. Until then, thanks a lot.
Rock and roll.